Hi guys, so in this video I wanted to show how we move all three of our fish tanks to different rooms. So before we get any further, I would like to explain what is happening. So this is our display tank with wild discus, and it's located in the center of our living room slash kitchen. So in the back of this tank we have our kitchen, which is very convenient because it's really close to the kitchen sink, and I can do water changes efficiently. I can just pump out water from the tank into the sink, and I can connect my HMA filter, which is what you see currently, and just fill up this tank really fast. So this is a big advantage of this location of our display tank, but there are a number of disadvantages. The first being is that this is a discus tank, so it needs to be kept warm. I have to keep it at 28 or 29 degrees Celsius all the time, and this room, this space is relatively wide, and it's usually not necessarily cold, but it's chillier here as compared to other rooms of our apartment. So it takes a bit more energy to warm up this tank. Currently I have here two 300 watt heaters, and they work full time and they consume quite a lot of energy. So what I wanted to do is to move it to a smaller room, which will be more energy efficient, where it will be easier to heat this tank up, and where it will possibly also have kind of a better visual effect than here. So there is also another problem with this location: these pothos plants. Well, at the first glance it looks like they're thriving in here and they're growing well, and some of them do, like the ones in here. They do get quite a bit of light from this lamp, and also they're closer to the window as compared to those plants in the back, so they are thriving. But everything that's behind it is not doing great, because there are quite a few. Well, this is, for example, I moved it to the front, and you can see that leaves are really tiny and they don't grow well. The leaves should be this large, or at least this large, like this pothos here, but this basically shows to me that this pothos is not doing great, and there's quite a few of these pothos that are not doing great in here because of the lack of light. There's literally no light in this corner of the room apart from this and the small LED light which I have installed on top to provide some light to these pothos plants. So pothos is not really healthy here. Some of it stems are growing fine, but about 80% are not doing great. So I want to move them to a place where they would get more light. So let's go, and I'm going to show you where I want to put this tank. And this is our kind of a relaxation room or something like that, which has two of our other fish tanks. Blackwater biotop, Rio Negro biotop, and another biotop here this is a clear water biotop. I've made videos about these tanks before, and you can see links here. Actually, I haven't done any water changes on these two tanks for almost 2 weeks, because I was completely overloaded with work and I kind of neglected them. But now I'm on holidays and I can take care of this, of all the tanks. But despite being without water change for 2 weeks, both of them doing great, and I've actually tested water parameters recently, and there's zero nitrates in both of them, and there's quite a bit of evaporation in here because there is a heater here, and I keep this tank at 27 degrees Celsius, but nevertheless everything else looks great and the fish are doing great. So the idea is to move our discus display tank on place of these two tanks, because it's the same length and it's the same width. Well, it's a bit wider, but it will fit in this corner perfectly. The reason why I want to have this discus tank in here, also because it will probably be more enjoyable to watch fish in here. The fish will be calmer, because discus are nervous fish, and that tank is in a high traffic area, so there are always people passing by, and sometimes they get scared. They got used to us more or less, but still sometimes if there is some unexpected movement, they get stressful. The other reason why I want to have that tank here is because of all of these pothos plants that are already here. I will move those pothos plants that are on top of this plate tank here as well. The problem with these pothos plants is not the lack of light. Actually, they get a lot of light from lamps and from the window. It's relatively large window. There's lots of light coming in. The problem is nutrition, because in order to thrive, pothos and monstera plants, they need lots of nutrients, so they need lots of nitrates. And I've just said a moment ago that there are 0 nitrates in these tanks. First of all, there are lots of aquatic plants in this tank, and they're both relatively sparsely populated. There are some small tiny fish in here, and it's the same here. So there's not enough nutrients for this pothos in here, and definitely not enough nutrients to support that many pothos stems. So these pothos, they have been losing leaves, and they have been suffering a bit because of the lack of nutrients. That's why I want to put here a discus tank, which always has nitrates, not too many, but some nitrates, and it will feed all of these pothos plants quite well. So you're probably thinking, what's going to happen to these 2 tanks? I'm not going to shut them down, of course not. So this black water tank will go into our bedroom. Let's go and I'll show you where. So this is our bedroom, and this is where I want to put this black water tank. This is actually not an aquarium stand. I bought this kind of a coffee table slash bedside table on eBay, and it only costed me 30 quid. It was quite cheap, but it's very sturdy. It's made of metal, and it can hold that tank quite well, so I'm not concerned about it. I will put the black water tank in here, and it's kind of a darkish and very calm, so it's a nice thing to look at before you fall asleep, and it will look just great in our bedroom. And the other biotop tank, a clear water biotop tank, which is a larger tank, it's a 150 liter tank. It will go into our living room. So I want to put it somewhere over there, together with the stand that it is on currently. That's where the lamp is on, and that's quite close to the window, so it will get enough sunlight, particularly in summer, and it will possibly also look great in here, and it will kind of make this corner alive. So these are the plants. So the plants are to move 3 tanks from one room to another, basically to 3 different rooms. It needs to be done because the plants and the fish and ourselves will feel happier and more comfortable. I know that it's a lot of work, and so it will involve removing fish, it will involve removing all the decorations, and basically taking these tanks into parts and moving them from one room to another. But I'm quite determined to get it done, and let's do it. So it's been day 3 after we moved this black water tank to our bedroom, and I think it looks better in here, and it's kind of already settled. I've added fresh magnolia leaves and some alder cones, and they've been leaching tannins in the meantime, so it's really brownish, and it's kind of a true black water setup right now. Also, previously I used to have here an air stone, and I replaced it with a small pump that actually pumps water through a hose that's kind of hidden behind this driftwood, so it looks a bit like a small stream, and it provides enough surface agitation to create oxygen, so that works well. The plants seem to be doing fine in here, but it's too early to say, but they've been growing with this light before when this tank was in a different room, so hopefully it will work fine here as well, and the fish seem to be happy. This new setup looks a bit more authentic and kind of more nature-like as compared to the previous one, although these are the same materials, the same driftwood, the same riparian plants, and the same leaf litter. And what I like about this location is that I can see this tank from three sides, kind of 3D view, as previously I could only see it from one angle. We also managed to relocate this tank to our living room, and I forgot to film it, but probably that wasn't too interesting because the only thing that I've done, I've just pumped out most of the water like this, and we moved this tank together with the stand, so there was not much of a relocation to talk about actually. Last couple of weeks this tank was neglected, so this Myriaphyllum, it basically covered most of the surface, and as a result moss and hydrocotyle and few other plants, they have suffered because there wasn't enough light. So now I trimmed Myriaphyllum, and hopefully moss will get back to life. The same goes with hydrocotyle. And yeah, basically this tank looks quite nice in here, and also compared to the previous location we can see this tank from basically any angle, and it's kind of more noticeable here. In terms of equipment, it's the same. Well, I previously had two large LED lamps, and I've replaced them with this one because I think this is a stronger lamp, so it will kind of provide more light. And previously I used to have pothos on top of this tank, so I needed more light, and now I don't need that much light. It as before, it doesn't have a heater, it doesn't have a filter. It has one wavemaker pump in that corner over there, and I will not be dosing CO2 as before, but I decided to add some fertilizer just to help plants to recover. But I will see, maybe I will cut off on fertilizers later on. So the next job is to move this display tank to the smaller room where these two other tanks were previously located, and that's going to be the hardest task to accomplish, because this tank is large, because it has a group of wild discus which have to be housed elsewhere while we're moving this tank, and besides, this whole tank with a sump extremely heavy, so that will be quite a lot of work to do over the next several days. So the plan is to move our display tank in this corner here. That's where two other tanks were previously standing, and these pothos plants, they were growing in these two other tanks. So to keep them alive before I will move our display tank in here, I put their roots in these plastic bags with some water in them, and I sealed them with rubber bands so there's no air getting inside, and there's kind of this wet environment. I don't know whether they will survive, but I hope that they will. You can see that these roots are in really bad shape. They kind of half rotten, and they're covered with algae. They were in very bad condition, so it was a good decision to actually move them out of those tanks and possibly to put them in our display tank. My guess is that these pothos roots, they were going bad because they were in tanks with lots of aquatic plants, so they had to compete for nutrition with aquatic plants, and they were not doing very well. So all of these roots are basically connected to all this mass of pothos in here, and this whole mass of pothos was not doing good recently, so there's quite a lot of yellow leaves, and I removed a lot of yellow leaves. And over here I set up this temporary tank. This is where our discus will be kept while we're moving the tank. They will stay here probably for 24 hours, maybe for 2 days tops. It's a relatively small tank, but it should be enough for these 2 days. I will cycle it, so I will add some cycled media into this Eheim 250 filter, canister filter, and it will get cycled overnight, and I will add a heater to match the temperature with the temperature in their tank. So tomorrow we are going to move them in this tank, and then we're going to relocate that whole display system in here. I will then move all the media from my sump into this container. I will add an air stone so it will stay alive, and yeah, so that's a plan. So finally the tank is in its new place. It was really hard to move it because it's an extremely heavy tank, just the tank itself. I think it weighs over 100 kilos because it's 10mm glass, so it was a real challenge to just move it from one room to another. And I wanted to do that really fast because all of these discos, they were in a temporary holding tank which was far too small for them, so I didn't want to keep them in that tank longer than a day, so there was really no time to film the whole process, and it was kind of done in really in a rush. So, but finally it's all completed now, and the discos are still scared. I think I will add some tetras in here just to make them to feel safer and to come out when there's some deezer fish. Discos usually feel more comfortable, and previously there used to be Altum angels, so they were more outgoing, but now they're more reclusive and shy. All the pothos plants have been replanted into this tank, including those pothos plants that were on top of this tank previously in our living room. It's been a day, well, it's been 2 days after we moved this tank, and pothos are adapting, I would say. So when they adapt, they lose quite a few leaves, and their roots are not necessarily rotting, but they're kind of falling into pieces, which is a normal process. So I would assume that it will take this pothos possibly 3 months to get used to this new environment, to this new place, because pothos can be quite sensitive when you relocate it from one room to another, especially if it was settled in the previous location. So it's quite normal if it doesn't feel well immediately. So just to conclude, I think this tank looks better in this room. At least it's kind of more impactful, and it fits nicely into this corner over here. And yeah, it's really great to just sit down in here and watch the fish, especially in the evening when it's dark. And yeah, I know the fish are scared, but they will come out, and I will add more fish in here, so there's more life in here. And yes, I'll keep you updated on how all of these 3 tanks are doing after they've been moved all to a different place. So happy holidays to everyone, and I'll see you soon.